goes into this. Don and his wife Linda have been not only hours, but weeks and months and years going into the history of the organization and also getting the group together on a reunion like this. And I think we owe him a big hand right now. Wait, and he's going to introduce some of the guests here, but also, like, where's Tilt? Is Tilt around? Guys, Tilt in the back. Yeah, he's there. But besides Don, Tilt's got the guys from Special Forces. And of course, most of you know that Tilt was a team leader, Special Forces Green Beret guy, went across the fence doing the things. And he's got a couple of books out front that you need to pick up. I was telling him earlier, I read his first one, Across the Fence. I finished at about 3 o'clock in the morning. And I couldn't get to sleep because I couldn't figure out how this guy was still alive. Give Tilt a big hand. Yeah. Okay, everybody turn your cell phones off. I'm going to turn it over to Don and Tilt, and hope you have a good time here at the museum. Just a couple of things here. I have a banner in the back. I didn't leave the pen out because people are in the museum that aren't in our group. But any of you guys that ran SOG, ran on teams that haven't signed that, I'd love to have you do that. I have quite a few on there. I'm the one that has it, but it's part of OLA. And what we'll end up doing with it, I'm not sure. And it's, like I said, it's on some tables towards the restroom. The other thing I wanted to mention, or get too far ahead, this patch down here, the OLA guys never had a patch, never had a medallion, never had anything. And they've asked me to do it. I've looked into it a couple of times, and I have been kind of busy. My life's a little hectic, but it's the way I make it be, I guess. And I met a guy named Tom Walker. Where's Tom?
He's not here. He'll be
back
later.
He had to go? Okay. And it happened via the museum because he's done a number of things for the museum. But he also did something else, and this was unsolicited because of Rich and Tom going ahead and wanting to give something on behalf of Mel Swanson. And for the Army guys that go to SOA, SOAR stuff, you've probably seen Mel out there. You may have known him. I ended up doing a eulogy for him, and we put him away here in Arlington on the 20th. And it was quite an experience. And Rich came to me, and Richard Benjamin, right here, he said, we want to do this. I didn't know anything about it. Actually, I thought it was about that big. And I asked Frances, Mel Swanson's daughter, if she could get a DD-214, and eventually we got it. And they busted their rear ends and made this happen. And made up a patch on that one as well. And I got a couple of photos of Mel, and I think it turned out really, really wonderful. They won't take any money for this. They're just doing it. And Tom has offered for our OLA people to do some other emblems and patches if we want to. And I have some ideas there. Maybe we can get some t-shirts and some hats someday. We never would have had that stuff because we were too busy fighting, and we weren't in places where they could get that stuff done. So, and that's another story. But Tom has some brochures here behind us. And if you need anybody to do graphics, artwork, I highly suggest you give him some consideration. Special thanks to Neil and Rhonda Mill and all the volunteers. The volunteers and the wonderful people that work for this museum. Poor Rhonda, she and Linda, I don't know anybody who works harder than they do, and my wife. And so it's such a pleasure. I have to pinch myself that we have an A-1 that flies, that we flew. That A-1, we're going to have a talk this afternoon. It's going to explain how it got to the United States. That's a story in itself. And there were 4 airplanes that were brought over, and that's all I'm going to say about it now. But the fact that it got here, is still here, and flew as long as it did is incredible. It's beyond belief. And 606 is kind of in that same category. And I'll let Ken Holston talk to you a little later about that project that's being painted at Delta Airlines right now, and it's going to be at the Kavanaugh Flight Museum in Texas. And both of these airplanes are the only 2 that flew combat for the USAF or USAF birds. 2 others were training birds at Hurlburt. If I have it right, I think Ken can keep me honest on that. And they were delivered after we were winding down, and the planes went straight to the Vietnamese. So the combat missions are the ones that, you know, if you had a Formula One car, that's, you like to have the records of who flew or who drove the thing. It's way valued, things like that. So I think I've covered most all of that. I'd like my son to run a video before we start, and then I'll introduce the gentlemen that are sitting at the table. And you guys may want to step out here. I realize that's a problem for you, but it's Doc Blanchard. When I started going around and getting various and sundry photos, anything they would share, Doc had this in a can. And if you guys recognize who that pilot is, I'll talk about that in just a second.
Did you say why they're doing that?
Okay, I'll explain it, yeah.
Okay.
He's on fire. Thanks, Doc. That's Jim Wold on the left. That's Paul Hooper. They're getting ready for a flight. Dinner.
Oh.
There's a lucky dog.
That's the arming crew. Which canister? Blues. Rockets, obviously. See that tail number on that first airplane to the left? 665.
Wow.
Bordering on freaky.
That's fired to Mars in that plane?
Could be. Maybe he has an observer in the back. So that's 665 and pulling out to get in position. Pleiku is a 4,000 foot-ish elevation, less than 6,000 foot runway, I believe. And they're taxiing for takeoff position.
Where was that taken?
Pleiku, taken out to the west. And watch the second airplane carefully, please. Where did it go?
Stars. That's to the east. Come on, baby, get up.
East or west?
It's east.
Okay.
I think.
I'm sure. I think the dip was out there where we dropped like that. I'll explain it in a minute. Lloyd, if you can get some slides ready for Pleiku and pass this out to Don. I want to say a couple of things. I was a brand new guy when I went to Pleiku. Larry Cavender and I arrived, so we're sitting over here on the side. We trained and we flew a few flights there, but we were the vets that flew a lot there. And most people in all understand that. Because in its infinite wisdom, the Vietnamization process was going to move all the A-1s to Thailand. So the 6 SOS was going to shut down and the planes would support the troops in the tri-border and so forth. We're going to have to come from Thailand. And the old heads that were around when I was there were saying that ain't going to work. And so we need the ones for Don. Okay. So Larry and I trained, and we were moving. This photo or that video was taken on the 19th of November. So that was a week after Jim Wold, Bob Carr, and I flew back in a 3-ship to begin adding to 5 other guys to have 8 men at Pleiku for a month while they made room for us to move to Da Nang. And Jax Roberts, John Weinig, Dean Detar, and Matt Coleman were sitting up at Da Nang. The Air Force always wanted to have some A-1s at Da Nang because of the Jolly Greens up there, and the the 6 would send guys on a rotation up there that varied from, I guess, as many as 3 men and 2 planes, or sometimes 4 planes up there, I believe. You guys can maybe help me there.
November what year?
Okay, of 69. So the 6 was destined to close on 15 November 1969. 9 of us moved permanently. Airplanes were being moved to Thailand. All of them were going to Thailand, and they were taking some of the guys that had enough time left at the 6th to go to Thailand, and some guys are going to go home early or other jobs. I really don't know too much about what all of them did, but I moved for 11 days permanently, and then I was coming back. And they came to me and said, sorry, Major came out and said, we're sorry, you're going to have to go back to Vietnam and be in a unit down there. And I said, when can I go? I'm sorry, I was... And I'm not, no offense to any of the KP guys, but that was the mothership with 3 squadrons, and we came back and we started this detachment. What's confusing to me here is the fact that the person being hosed down, it could have been a fact, but I believe that there were probably some operations of guys closing out. And when we actually got back, and this was taken a week later, on the 19th, so 4 days after the squadron was closed. Wouldn't surprise me if somebody got their last flight in there. I just don't know, and probably never will. I just wanted to make sure that I covered a little bit about how Junior, Larry, and I were. And we have with us Paul Etterling, and we have Ruth Harris, and Wynn DePorter, and Don Deneen. And if he gets here, Jax Roberts, who was also in the unit for a little while longer, and Larry and I. Correct me, Don, or anybody, has there ever been a gathering where you had 3 or 4 or 5, 6 SOS guys?
Yeah, a couple of the A-1
At the A-1 reunions, but not your own function, not your own show. Okay, so I want to preface one thing. This was serious business we did. And I came back on the 12th with Wold and Bob Carr and landed, and we found out Jerry Helmich had been killed that day. And he was the last of the 6 pilots to crash and to be killed. They probably don't want to talk about this. I hope they don't mind that I mention that unit lost 15 airplanes and 12 pilots killed, if I have my math correct. Some other number.
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
The whole time of 6, I don't know.
I think in the whole
I
time
only
the
know about 1 year.
okay, in the entire time the 6 was there. And the last thing I'll say before I pass over to Don Deneen, the 6 was created when the first was being moved to Thailand and it became the hobos. And they, Don will be able to describe and Win how that all happened. But it was a pretty hasty deal, and they were left 4 fat faces, and the unit moved, and then these guys came in. The critical thing is to them, for many of the men in this room, they were created to support MACV-SOG. That was the reason the unit was formed, if I understand it correctly. They did a lot of other things. They were a full squadron, and I'll let them talk about that. And then we'll go to some photos of Pleiku area and stuff. And at any time in our discussions, when you think it's appropriate, raise your hand. We want to have questions. This is an interchange, and we want to have it be just that. So if you have anything else, and is the mic helping? Do you think, or we try to use that? I'll try to stretch this over to Don then.
Don Deneen, I live in Fort Walton Beach, Florida now. Somehow I got this dubious honor of leading off this discussion. But like you said, the 6th SOS was formed, and I'm not certain of the date. It was sometime in September, October, November of 1967. Because I didn't get there over to England Air Force Base where it was being formed until just mid-December. And then I know there were 2 classes of A-1 pilots out of Hurlburt that were, some of them were assigned there during that period earlier, so there were at least 2 classes. Windy Porter was the first de facto commander of the 6th SOS. He told me last night he got to England Air Force Base. He and Bob Gokenauer, they were dragged over there by the actual squadron commander to, they were both instructing at Hurlburt, so they were brought over to put some meat in the squadron right at the beginning. But he got there, him and Bob Gokenauer, and the only 2 officers in the squadron at that time. And there were 2 A1s sitting out there. A1Hs. He'd never been on an A1H. They both got their gear together, went out and got in those airplanes, had them loaded with dummy bombs, and went out for their first training mission with an A1H. Of course, he only had umpteen hours in the E model. Anyway, when the squadron was formed, somebody in the Air Force convinced Jack Ford, Wallace Ford, to go back to Vietnam for his second tour. They were going to make him the squadron commander. Well, he went through the training bit, organized the squadron, got them all set up there, and when he flew out of England, we went over 2 C-141s, I believe it was, or 2 of them, dragging us all the way over. We were left Louisiana in the middle of February, first part of February, and got to Eielson Air Force Base to refuel, and they let us sitting out in the cold aluminum bird while they're refueling, and we're all wearing short sleeve khaki shirts, khaki pants. It was kind of cool. But from there, then we went on. I don't remember we stopped at Toyota or not.
It was in Japan. I don't know
Yeah,
where.
I know. Yeah, it was Toyota. And from there to the Philippines, well, we kind of split up at Toyota. The ones that didn't have to go to survival school went on to Pleiku. The ones that hadn't been to survival schools, jungle survival, to down to Clark. And when we got there just a day after the class started, and we had to sit there in Clark, play golf, and do things like that for about a week before we could get into the class. The 6th SOS class that was there has a distinction. On the day when you go out in the jungle and you go hide and they send the Negritos out to find you that night, and you got a little chip and when they catch you, you give them the chip and they turn it in and got 10 pounds of rice or something like that. I don't know what it was. We had the distinction of turning loose more rice that night than any other squadron, any other class in their history. I know myself, I crawled under some bush, got out to the edge of this cliff. There was a tree growing there, it was growing out over the end. I crawled out on this branch, and I got way out there, branch, well away from everything. Stayed there for quite a while. It got dark, and I'm out there about 150 feet above the ground. And I said, I proved I can find a hiding place. This isn't enough. I went out, sat in the middle of the road, and held my shit up. When they since fallen asleep and fallen off the tree. Let's see, what else? Anyway, myself, I got to Hurlburt in September. Left there in December to the England Air Force Base. Made 3 ferry trips. The squadron not only was training in the follow-on training, but we were ferrying aircraft. Some of the guys before I got there had been picking them up at the boneyard down in Davis-Monthan and taking them up to Navy rework facility, Quonset Point. And my first real flight in an A-1H, probably had one before that, was ferrying them to San Francisco. I Jim Reeves and anyway, 3 of us gone. On the way out there, we went to Colorado Springs and Air Force Base, Peterson Field, and refueled. And on the way, this is middle of January. We're about 10,000 feet, and all of a sudden it's getting cold. So we got up toward Colorado, and I couldn't find the damn heat switch. I'm looking all over that cockpit. I was freezing. Well, we got to Colorado Springs. I was upside down in that cockpit finding it. I found it for the rest of the flight. Anyway, Jack Ford was given a squadron. He arrives at Pleiku and gets off the airplane. As he steps off, it's the greeting party from this base greets him and says, Colonel Ford, here's your commander, Colonel Rupp. And he said, ooh, boy. You were there when that happened?
Sad day.
Sad day, and it kind of, we got off to a shaky start. There were 6, I believe it was 6 guys from the other squad, the Hobo Squadron, the first squadron, were left there or sent back there to provide some experience in the squadron. And we had about 5 or 6 guys on the way over that got sent to Thailand instead. So it caused a little tension until those guys finally moved out of the squadron and went home. They did their job. They got us the training we needed and all that. Let's see, where would I go from here? Anybody else? I just wanted you to know, you saw that dog that was in that video? We had our own dog. He's got goggles and everything. He's a fighter pilot. Let's see. Not well prepared here. Okay, when we got to Pleiku, we only had about 4 or 6 airplanes, something like that. So, and 20 some pilots. Some guys didn't get checked out for maybe a couple weeks. I don't know. I got my checkout ride fairly early, and on the 2nd, I think it was of March, my first ride was in one of the B models that take you out, kind of let's tour the country and drop some bombs, and you get to see where things are and what it all looks like. And well, the B model, the A1E model, we could put cameras on it. You had a forward gun sight camera, you had a tail camera that showed you where the stuff hit that you dropped. And about 2 days later, I'm looking at the film on this first flight. We've been in on a pass, and I see a dot go by. I call my instructor. I say, "Hey, look at this. What is it?" And he says, "It's probably a 50 cal." No more. You know, when we pulled out, usually, you saw him out there going up a nice, smooth move. It was like that from then on. It was jerky. Yeah, we got that picture of the approach to.
Let me get that up here.
Approach to Pleiku.
We had your photos. I'll get them right here.
We're rearranging this stuff. Okay, here we go. Okay.
There's Pleiku Air Force Base. In the middle of the ramp, or the big ramp area, that's where our squadron is located on.
You stand corrected. East, you're always right.
Yeah. The junkyard down here in the end,
Don't forget your mic.
the junkyard there in the end, I don't know why they put it there. Nothing like coming in for every landing and seeing all those wrecked airplanes. Somebody asked me the other day up there where the smoke is, or that was Holloway Field, and I think that's the town of Pleiku. Holloway Field in the 4th Division was over here further. One of our early debauchery nights was the guys flew over from the Army side. About 3 Hueys picked us up, took us over there for a party. And they partied too and then took us back. That was the hairy part. The building's way up toward the back where you see that road going out to the end. Our hoochers were probably right along that road. And we got a picture of the Spad hooch.
I had some of mine, but I didn't know if you had any in there.
Yeah, there's one in there.
Okay.
Bar. You don't have it out there.
I don't think I had that one. I got these from Brian, or from Don J. You may not have seen these before. And this is at the 68 arrival. And does that bring back any memories?
No, not that one.
Okay.
We got another one. This one right here.
And you got this. This is one.
That's the one, yeah.
Okay.
That's all the pilots and officers in the squadron when we arrived. Everyone participated except one gentleman there, 3rd from the right, 3rd from Wynn, from the, I wondered for years who that guy was, and I finally found his picture in a previous training class, and I don't know what happened to him, but he left the squadron. The rest of them, Jack Ford is the third from the left up there, fourth from the left, no, up there. A lot of you guys maybe remember Stretch Walmus. He's the third one up there in the back row. Jack Ford, you pointed him out. The one shorter guy in the back over there, right there, Paul Johns. Where did he get his training? Jack Ford brought him in. He'd been over a previous tour. I think he flew T-28s then, but I don't know for sure. But both of them were KIA within about 4 months. After that, for my tour, there are kind of 3 or 4 real special things that I remember, missions and that. And one of them was with Blackjack in October. One of them was Kham Duck Evacuation. There's Blackjack. Yeah. The Kham Duck Evacuation, and showing Newt's picture. The one way over in the upper left. That one right there. There's one photo, the only one I know of an A-1 that was shot down, and that's just before it hits the ground. Who's here? Here's the man that picked up our
the pilot from there.
commander. It was Newt Swain.
I was
He was right there circling him as he went down, and the Kham Duck was being overrun at the time. As he said, he was on the wrong side of the runway. And I thought sure that the first time I saw this picture, I saw a chute up there someplace, but it's a real grainy picture. But that is probably the only picture in existence of an A-1 that was shot down just before it crashed. Newt, he was a squadron commander, and he wasn't a young fellow. He was 45 maybe, something like that. I mean, I was young. I was 35.
Do you mind if I interject something?
Yeah.
At dinner last night, these men sitting there talking, and they met. This has happened a lot of times, more than you'd think, because there's this involvement between the airplanes and the guys on the ground, and once in a while they hook up. And there's nothing more special than that to me. I just think that's... Also, I would like to say a little bit about Don coming to SOAR and meeting Blackjack. Don Deneen flew a mission for him and was critical to those guys surviving. He guided Blackjack down and a lot of other things that you want to talk about. But I was there for one real special moment, and I'd like to tell that story because Don meets Blackjack and he says, I'm not really sure I'm the guy that was in your book or we were in the same place or words to that effect, because this air stuff you were describing in this book doesn't, too much fast mover stuff and other things in there. And Blackjack looked at him, he said, I'm on the ground, I can't see it. I don't know anything that's going in the air. He said, so I had to just make that up. And he said, I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, I might as well embellish the hell out of it.
Just a few, yes.
Yeah, Don, this is probably a good time to get back to your question you had about some guy on the ground panting and
Yes.
said, I need some help or something. And you ask him what to do, and he says, drop your stuff on my smoke. And he's throwing his smoke over his shoulder as he's running. This is Troll. Troll was on a bright light on 23 May.
Okay.
Our team leader. Yeah. Anyway, this is the guy.
Well, that was another experience. As our primary mission was SOG and SAR. That was primary. And unfortunately, a lot of times the birds on our alert at Pleiku, we get scrambling for troops in contact, mission convoy, intercept, things like that. And we had to scramble sometimes to find people to cover a real SOG emergency. And in your case, I was out there got diverted from the mission I was on because there wasn't anybody, they wanted somebody close, I guess. I don't know why they diverted me. But got diverted, and I had nothing but 6 500-pounders and 2 750-pound bombs on board. And they're not what you would call a close air support.
They were close enough for me.
And I hear this, I get on the FM radio, thank God we had those, and I hear this voice saying, "Hit my smoke!" And he's throwing smoke grenades over his shoulder. Now, I'm got a little bit of a dilemma. How far can he run from that smoke? Before I drop a 500-pounder on it.
He's got short legs too.
It was a very narrow ridge line. How did you fit on that ridge line, buddy? A very narrow ridge line near the Ashau, somewhere up in that area, and there rise. It's a fairly long, and they're running along that thing, and I'm dropping bombs behind them. And like some of them, if I got too close to the smoke, I kind of drop them just on the edge. Try to drop them just on the edge, so maybe it cut the top off the crest or something. I don't know what my process was, but I was wondering what happened.
The whole team.
Once we expended the ordnance, or when they use a reason for us to hang around, we had to get out of the way and let somebody else come in.
Can I add a
Yes.
500-pound bomb story?
Yes, you can.
My role in all this was when the initial cadre of the 6th, I'm Ruth Harris, by the way, as their tours wound up, my group kind of filtered in, and we carried the torch for 6 to 9 months until the squadron was actually closing up shop. Well, Don's covered well how our primary mission and carrying hard bombs to make cuts in the Ho Chi Minh Trail when we weren't doing our primary mission. So we'd be out bombing the trail along with all the fighters, and then some problem would happen. Well, my little story of being out there with 500-pound and 750-pound bombs, and a team from CCC is in trouble and needs help right now, and we divert, and Don's following Troll, throwing smokes over his shoulder. In my case, they're along the road, and they're bad guys along the road, and they're trying to make it to an LZ for extraction. And we've got 500-pound bombs. Well, what are we going to, there's nobody else there. What are we going to do? So we would drop one bomb on the trail while the debris is falling from the bomb. The team runs up, dives in the bomb crater that we've made. We move it. They keep their heads down. We drop a bomb 50 meters further down the trail, or 100 meters or whatever, and we walked our 2,500-pound bombs down to an extraction zone at which they made successful extraction. And while I rested the mic away from Don, I'll just say what made this so special to the 6th Squadron was you guys, because it was the only, call my bluff if you can, it was really the only place where a fighter pilot would support the same people, get to know the Covey facts, go up to Khartoum and see what was going on up there. The team leaders could come down to Pleiku and get away from the little people for a while, have a break, get unlimited hot water, and you knew, regardless of what you thought our prospects for winning the war, you knew if you did your job well, Americans were going to live that otherwise weren't. So it was a unique opportunity and a blessing for us to have that opportunity to work with you all, and I'll say thanks for all of what you've done. On the lighter side, up at Khartoum, I learned to eat raw eggs and the raw egg toast, and I passed that on to 2 subsequent fighter squadrons, and a memorable going away party, which was one of Don's first experiences at Pleiku, when I'm sitting next to the wing commander, and you guys had taught me to eat raw eggs and do raw egg toast. So I'm going to propose a raw egg toast. The wing commander, unbeknownst to me, has said, this BS of the officers in the club of throwing food is going to stop. So I'd had some drinks. And some of the other guys had too, I think. So I'm going to propose a toast that you guys taught me. You got your pairs at CCC to the squadron, and pop this raw egg in the shell, and that's toast to the squadron. So I get the egg. I've got the audience, the rapt audience there. The wing commander, unbeknownst to me, the full colonel, has been getting redder and redder, because what does he think's going to happen? Harris is leaving tomorrow. He's going to start pelting eggs in the officers' club. Never crossed my mind. So the wing commander jumps up in my face at my going away party, the slick wing captain, and says, if one egg is thrown in here, and I didn't handle it well. But thank God for Bob Carr. Thank God for Bob Carr. He's sitting in the back of the room. The officers' club is full. He says, here's to the 6th Special Operations Squadron, long may we thrive. Pops the egg, and everybody eats their eggs, and we sit down, and I wander off to the 71st medevac for medical attention, and go in and apologize to the wing commander. We make friends the next day, and so I feel like for a memorable going away party, I have your peers at CCC to thank for that good experience, and thanks for all you've done.
Can I add a little to this story?
Like Ruth said, I had just got there. And there were some things said by the wing commander about throwing things, and a couple of guys, a little roll, they kind of toss it over from behind that I saw, and he'd be out there looking. And it went from Article 19 to, I think, a court-martial, but maybe I'm wrong about that, the threats. And I'm just wondering what is going on here. And I didn't have any clue. I thought you were going to throw the eggs. That's what was going to happen. I thought, boy, this is going to get ugly quickly. And then you did what you did, and Bob Carr did what he did. But that continued, and somebody else stood up and said, well, if you're not a fighter pilot, you can't eat garbage. He threw his egg in there, and I'm like, oh, boy, I don't know how this is going. At some point, I'm going to have to get up and do this. And about the 5th guy, as I recall, guess what happened to that egg? He blew it all over the table. They had a bigger mess than they ever would have had if they'd have let us throw them, you know. And so I was in awe of you. I thought you had done everything ad-lib. I didn't know you had some connection with CCC about all this stuff. And Roof, it was a highlight of my life. It really was, still is.
Okay, now I've got to tell another Special Forces story. So I go from there to Spanish language school, and I'm in Panama. And I've taken a mobile training team up to Guatemala. And this 3rd of the 7th group comes up with Colonel Dandridge. If you ever cross paths with him, he's running an urban warfare session there, and they're staying at the same pension where we're staying at. And we've been there a while. The Air Force mobile training team, and he comes up. We take them to dinner at El Siguan Quiche. Thatched roof, grass on the floor, and so we're going to check them out in Guatemala. And they have Captain Luis Santos, naturalized Peruvian Indian Special Forces captain, and he's in the group. We have our dinner, and we've had a few beers. I'll confess. And so one of the Army guys, he's not Special Forces, he's an artillery guy. He starts eating his napkin. And what are you doing? I say, well, real men really eat their napkins after a meal. So okay. So we start kind of go down that path, and so I'm also tiene huevos crudos, and so he brings the waiter brings some Guatemalan eggs out for toast and whatnot, and they have these super hot peppers in Guatemala, chiltepes. And so we're eating raw eggs, and Colonel Dandridge, the Special Forces commander, says, well, raw eggs are just mental. You gotta mix them with this really fiery hot pepper. And I hear, so we start that, and people are kind of dropping out of the group. There's probably 5 of us and 5 of them. And this is before Eating Disgusting Things is a TV show, right? So I hear Luis Santos, the Special Forces captain, say, have you got any carne con gusanos? Do you have any maggoty meat back there? And the waiter says, I'll go look. I think so. And I mean, I'm knowing I can't do maggoty meat. So thank goodness, one of my guys, Frank Garza, so a big rice bug, you call it a rice bug, big roachy bug, comes flying in, goes around the bare light bulb that's over the table, kind of skitters to a landing, and Frank goes, slurps that big rice bug up, chews it up and swallows it, and Colonel Dandridge says, well, we're not giving up, but let's call a truce and we'll continue this another time. So that's my last Special Forces connection.
And Don, we'll get your photographs up here. I think you want to talk about your helicopter flying your airplane back.
Yeah, I brought every airplane I flew home.
And where is it?
You don't have that picture.
I guess I didn't get it in there.
Well,
I've got it in another place, but it's on the hoist. Sorry.
here it is coming back from Song Bay one
There
time.
we go.
Where's yours?
Yeah.
You brought it back.
And I blew a jug and had to land a fax little dirt strip someplace up Song Bay. I don't even remember where it is. It was south of Pleiku, I know, someplace down there. And spent the night with them. Didn't like that at all. Being out there, and who knew who was around, you know.
You knew who was around.
Got out, the thing was parked right next to a road at the pad at the end of the runway is right next to a road, and I thought that airplane's not going to be there in the morning. It was there, and I don't remember how I got home, but that's how the bird did. My 7th mission over there was a divert mission to a SOG. And again, on this one, Skinny McGinnis was the leader. He was taking me around, showing me the tricks. And he had napalm and CVU. They loaded me down all the time with big bombs, wall to wall, and we get diverted to a SOG. I didn't even know it was a SOG at the time. I thought it was just some guys in trouble. They were in a bomb crater someplace there, and Skinny says, "Oh, I got you, pop the smoke. I got you, okay." And he goes in and he tells me to hold off, because I got big bombs. And he goes in, drops some napalm, and he goes back to CVU and more napalm and whatever. And every time he went in, I was on the opposite side of the fit. I rolled in and made believe. And I'd pull off out of there and go down about as far as I could, and I'd pull up. And we probably made about 6, 8 passes, and I'm zooming up and down, making believe I'm a fighter pilot, dropping bombs. No, I didn't drop a thing. It turned out that about 2 months later, this general officer shows up from Saigon, and he pins a silver star on both me and Skinny. And I said, "What the hell is that for?" I didn't do a damn thing. Anyway, I figured I kept it because I figured it made up for a couple I didn't. But I found out at SAR 2 years ago, it was Bob Shippen.
Yeah.
He remembered that incident very well. Speaking of ordnance, this man probably dropped more ordnance than most people in the Air Force. He taught for 4 years, 5 years at Hurlburt in the A-1. He had a tour over there in 65, went back with us in 68. I thought I had the honor of having the most missions in a tour over there, from 325 thereabouts, if you count a couple that probably shouldn't have been counted. This man had 637, 657 in his 2 tours.
Good boy.
So I had his second tour, he only had 323. So I might have edged him there. But to get that, buried a friend of mine, or helped bury him, about 6 months ago, and he had been in tankers, and they had a coin that said, "You don't get to pass unless we pass you gas," or something like that. And we didn't get to drop a ordnance to support you guys unless we had a load crew. Paul Edgar down here. For some reason, one day here 20, 30 years ago, whatever, 25 years ago, I didn't have anything better to do. I went through my log book and totaled up all the bombs I dropped, all the napalm I dropped, and somehow I found a table that gave you the weight of each ordnance and the prices. His crews loaded over 1 million pounds on my airplane, and his airplane. I mean, those guys worked and worked, and I don't know why he's not all bulked up. So much, 700 pounds. They hand wrestled a lot of it. The really big stuff, they had to list to it. And by the way, this stuff was dirt cheap. It was only about $1 a pound. So I spent about $1 million that year. What else we got here?
I really came here to listen more than to speak. I was hoping to hear from you guys. But let me, I will, as Don was talking, a few things occurred to me. First of all, I did not realize how significant the mission that the SOG guys were accomplishing until I read a couple of books a few years ago that explained it. I had no idea. I participated in several insertions, lots of extractions, most of them successful, not all of them. And at the time, I had no idea what that was all about. I just knew that we were being called on to help, and we did the best we could to help. The more I listened to you guys, the more I recognized what heroic actions took place on the ground while we were up there cozy in our airplane, generally safe. And we had a lot of advantages. Number one, our airplane carried lots of ordnance, lots of different kinds of ordnance. It's amazing the things that we were able to load on that airplane. And we had communication. One of our advantages, we could talk to you guys. The fast movers couldn't. They had UHF radio. They couldn't talk to you. They had to talk through a FAC, but we could talk to you guys, and that was really an advantage for us to work in supporting you on the ground. The Skyraider at that time, supporting that mission, was the ideal airplane. They could not have invented a better machine for the purposes that we put that machine to support you guys. And like I say, I just didn't realize how significant your mission was and the part that we played in it. As Don was talking, I thought of several war stories that I know you would enjoy if there were time for me to relate them. There's not time, so maybe at dinner or something, if you want to hear some really funny things.
Give us one.
Give us one.
Well, I'll give you one that's not funny. Well, yeah, you might find a little humor in this. There was a team on the ground, and they were in trouble, and they needed help, and I was the lead of a flight of two, and I had wall-to-wall napalm. Now, one of the rules that we always adhere to was you never fly over the friendlies in expending ordnance, particularly low-altitude stuff like CBU and napalm. You just don't fly over the good guys, and you fly parallel or whatever. Anyway, these guys on the ground, I was talking to them on their Fox mic or whatever, and they were in deep trouble. The bad guys were real close, and the commander on the ground, the troop commander, said he told me which direction he wanted me to come in and drop my napalm. The bad guys, I guess, were really, really close. And the only way that he saw that I could expend that napalm and help him was to come in over the good guys, over him. And I argued about it. I said, no, we really don't want to do that. And he said, yeah, you do. We want you to do that. Well, so I did. I rolled in, flew right over the friendlies, pickled off the napalm, and as I pulled off, I heard on my radio, I swear to God, this were the exact words. He said, "You got us." Now, what do you think I felt at that time? my heart stopped. I froze. And I come back and said, tell me about it. He said, well, you didn't really get us, but damn, that was close. I didn't think I felt in. I felt great. And he explained a little later that the heat from the napalm was so intense that they did in fact feel that heat. But he used the wrong words when he called me and said, "You got us." Jeez, come on, man. That was a very successful mission, and they were successfully extracted a little bit later in the day. I have some audio tapes. I took a tape recorder with me on a lot of missions, and I have some tapes at home that I go back and listen to occasionally of our supporting the guys on the ground, and it sure brings back memories. Some of the war stories I'll tell you are, like I said, I won't do it today. We don't have time. You really don't want to hear it. Ken Holston has heard just about every one. He's sitting there listening. He's saying, you got to tell the same story. Don't screw it up. Don't screw it up.
Well, before you go, at least give them the short version of your Finny fly.
Oh, well, it's not short.
We have time.
My 657th mission. Came back to land at Pleiku and pitched out, put the gear down, put the gear handle down, and the gear handle wouldn't move. The gear handle was binding, and it just wouldn't move. So I climbed back over the airport, put the plane on autopilot, called the ground, told them I had a problem, couldn't get the gear down, and one of my fellow classmates, or squadron mates rather, Jack Gaffney, climbed up in an airplane on the ramp, communicating through people on the ground back to me about what I could do to solve this problem. Now, I was on autopilot, had the airplane in a gentle bank circling overhead. I had a wingman that was watching the whole thing. And he suggested that I unscrew a panel that's kind of down to the left-hand side of the I go back out there and look at that. Exactly where it is. But anyway, I was supposed to take this panel off, and behind the panel is some linkage that I could free up this handle and get my gear down. Well, I ended up unstrapping, turning myself upside down in the cockpit with my head down near the rudder pedals, with a hunting knife that I carried on my survival kit. And using the tip of the hunting knife, I was able to unscrew several of the screws that held this panel in place, and was able to peel back enough of it to get to that linkage. And I don't know exactly what I did or how I did it, but I was able to shake it and vibrate it and move it, and pulling on the gear handle. The gear handle in this airplane is a big old thing. And I was finally able to get the gear down one at a time over a span of about probably 30 or 40 minutes, a long time. And then I got back up and sat down and strapped back in, and the gear handle still would not stay down exactly. I mean, when I turn it loose, it go back up. It was binding on something then. And so I was finally able to put the gear handle down and push it beyond. There was a plunger type thing that I forgot what that plunger was for, but had to do with the emergency gear lowering or something.
If you go forward of neutral, then it isolates the hydraulics to the emergency extension.
Yeah, and so I pushed it beyond that plunger, and that kind of locked it so it couldn't come back up. So the gear handle is down, the gear's down, and I'm able to land and taxi in, and that was my last flight. So, At home, one of the ground crew there at Pleiku drew a cartoon picture, a big thing about this big, a big picture. I have it on. Wish I brought it. That depicted the airplane and the pilot with his feet sticking out of the cockpit, and the bolts and nuts flying out of the cockpit. And I cherish that picture. Anyway, this, I wish I had time to tell some.
Hey, a quick question, sir.
Yes.
How many times did you return to base with tree trunks or tree branches in your aircraft, sir?
Twice in one day. Twice in one day.
Really?
And they needed pilots real bad, so they never grounded me. I flew the next day, as a matter of fact. One of those, the first one in the morning, I was flying out of Quinyon, and an army guy who was a Mohawk pilot. What's a Mohawk? It's some kind of reconnaissance thing that they. Anyway, he said, if I can fly with you in the right seat, we're flying the E model, two-place airplane, then I'll give you a ride in the Mohawk. Well, good deal. Give me a combat mission in the Mohawk. So he climbs in my right seat, and we go out, and again, I'm dropping napalm. I got too low, went through some smoke, hit the damn tree, and came back with dents in the airplane and scared the hell out of him. So I played it cool, we do that sort of thing. And it didn't hurt anything. I mean, they put some combat tape on the wingtips, the airplane wasn't damaged real bad. It really wasn't. It was able to fly again. Later that afternoon, I was flying another mission, and my flight commander, Kit Carson was his name. Anybody ever run into him? Kit Carson. Yeah.
Leonard Carson? History books.
He missed the target. He just couldn't seem to hit the target. We had wall-to-wall white phosphorus bombs he had. Can you imagine that load? What a weird thing to load on an airplane. But he was missing the target. He wasn't getting in there. I was getting kind of uptight because I had napalm and I can hit that damn target. I'm not going to miss. And white phosphorus bombs really put out a lot of smoke. I mean, a lot of smoke. Well, I rolled in to pick off my nape, and I flew through the clouds of the white phosphorus, the Willie Beat bombs, not realizing that the clouds were obscuring some really tall trees. And I hit the damn trees. And I mean, I really hit them. It did a number on that airplane. I hit it so hard, it jerked the stick right out of my hand. And so I should have bought the farm. I really should have. But I was very lucky again. And I was able to climb out and did a stall check to find out what the stall speed would be on the airplane. And I landed at Pleiku. I was flying that mission out of Quinyon, but I landed at Pleiku. And I taxied in, and I landed that airplane probably 20, 30 knots above normal approach speed because the stall speed with all the damage was really high. And the guys stood there and watched me as I parked. Well, a lot of guys came out with cameras, taking pictures. And I remember one guy in particular, and I think if I give you his name, you'll remember it, a guy by the name of Bernie Fisher. Medal of Honor winner. Bernie Fisher stood there and took pictures of my airplane. I'll talk to him later about getting pictures of that. But that airplane never flew again. They hauled it off to the boneyard and used it for parts. It did a number on it broke the main spar. It really did it. Tore the airplane up. I was so lucky to have survived that dumb thing that I did. But someday I'll tell you a story about how I ended up on my second tour. I was having marital troubles. My wife, she was away a lot, and we were on the verge of a divorce. And I was at the Stag Bar at Hurlwood, and we had a genuine stag bar. And there were no women allowed. That kind of thing today just would not exist. But at that time, it was accepted. And I was at the Stag Bar with Ford, and we were both shit-faced. And Wallace Ford looked at me and he says, "How'd you like to go back to Nam?" I said, "Doing what?" He said, "Flying the A-1H, the H model, the single place. Hot dog, I've never flown that airplane. I've been flying this two-place fat-face E model." And he said, "How'd you like to go back?" I said, I'd love it. So I signed up to go back with him as my commander. And as Don mentioned a minute ago, after we landed at Pleiku and timed off that C-141 and was greeted with the fact that you're no longer the commander of this organization, it was a very sad thing, very sad for me. And he was very sad because, he put the squadron together and he had a bunch of volunteers for the most part. Not all of them, but a lot of the guys were volunteers. And anyway, so I'll talk to you guys over dinner or something and tell you some, or if you want to hear some of the lies I've told, talk to Ken Holston. He's heard all of them. I enjoy being here. Like I say, I didn't really come to talk. I came to listen, and mostly I want to listen to you guys. And it was a real joy last night hearing some of the things there at dinner, and I hope to hear some more stories tonight and tomorrow night. Thank you very much.
Well, enough of the war. We're going to get back to a little politics in the 6th now. About 3-4 months into the tour there, when we got there in '68, we got the word that we were going to have a 3-squadron wing there. We're going to have 3 squadrons of A1s. And they immediately made a wing, formed the wing, 633rd wing, wasn't it? Yep. 633rd SOW. We became SOSs then, instead of the Air Commando Squadrons. And our base commander became the wing commander. He immediately pulled Gokenauer out of our flying schedule, who was Gokenauer had been an instructor for just like Wynn. And they loaded dummy bombs on it, and he'd go out to the dump area, and every day for about 2 weeks or so, about the time it took for him to get qualified. And the next thing you know, we've got a brand new guy flying lead. And Birdsong, yeah. And you couldn't correct him. You couldn't tell him anything. He did what Wynn said we didn't do, was fly across a line one day, dropping some ordnance. And wingman tried to correct him, and that didn't go over big when they landed. But the strange thing was that about 10 years ago or so, in the Air Force magazine, I read a story about Birdsong. And he was a hero, B-17 pilot in World War II, brought back an airplane that was all shot up, people all wounded and everything in the airplane, and really became a hero then, so you never know what you got. Back to some of the 6th organization, which Don particularly was interested in. About the middle of March. We sent, 4 of us went up to Da Nang and opened up our SAR detachment up there. We had 4 airplanes, 4 people. They weren't expecting us. Somebody didn't. No, there was no coordination there. We lived in the transit quarters the first night with all the people coming and going and drunks walking in and everything. Didn't get much sleep that night. The next night, we got them to move us into some BOQ quarters or something that was a little bit better. And, in Pleiku, we had these low single-story hoochos. We had the earth berms all the way around them for protection. And if the siren went off, I just roll off my cot and against the wall, and that was okay. But first night we're in this BOQ in Da Nang, the siren goes off, and all of a sudden everybody's running like hell. I said, I better run too. I didn't know where the dugout or where the bomb shelters were or anything, but we eventually got some quarters in the Jolly Greens set up. And it was not, Jim Reeves told the 366 wing commander, the F4s, we don't get a better place to live, we're going home. You're not going to have a SAR outfit here. And they found something for us. The other thing was, let's see. Oh, we never did get the other 2 squadrons. So until, I guess you still had it as a wing when you got there, right? Yeah. It's still a one squadron wing commander, which we didn't need.
Sam Berman.
I had another story to tell, but can't think of it right now. I was going to tell. You got this picture up there? Yeah. This picture was a Mohawk SAR recovery. This is the guys who recovered of the Jolly Green crew. The guys we recovered, plus another Mohawk, which is right behind this picture, landed where we, at Da Nang, I guess, we took the survivors back, and it was a brother of the other pilot. So we had a pilot and co-pilot, one recovery, and I had that picture at home, and when I started putting this scrap back together, it was, years later, and I could not remember who my wingman was, the man on the far right, Carl Richards. It took a hell of a long time for me to figure that out. But about 10 years ago, the co-pilot on the Jolly Green brought me, flash that other picture back up, brought me this snapshot of a painting a friend of his made of that sortie. I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't remember Carl's name. I don't have any memory of this mission, of this going on. No clue at all, still don't. But he said that he had this painting made, and up along that cliff line, on one side or the other, there was a 37 millimeter gun right above the site. And he says, I said, they won't be able to depress it low enough. We'll just stay underneath them. And apparently that's what we did. But I still have no memory of it. So, I don't know. There are other ones more interesting. Anyway, I went home from the 6th in in January of that year, -1 flight suit because the final party was a little raucous. But I got home okay. Carol met me in San Francisco. Oh, yeah. If you're ever in a situation where they're offering R&Rs, and you're gonna go on an R&R, and you make your reservation for R&R, but they're flying it out of Saigon, the airplane, make sure you get your reservation on the C-130 that goes through Pleiku to get down to Saigon. I figured, no, C-130, hell, they got all kinds of room. Comes in that morning and I'm supposed to leave. I go up to oh no, we're full. And we got a seat in it. I said, well, how about up in the cockpit? Oh no, they're all taken too. So I go back to Tuvok. I say, hey, base Billy Bird available today? I said, no, we're restricted on flying hours this month. We can't go anyplace. So I went back to the squadron. I says, we got a E model that would not be on the schedule. Every airplane we got scheduled. So I said, put me on the schedule tomorrow. Yep, I'm done.
How much time do we have? Can
5 or 10 minutes you got? I want to do a couple other things real quick too.
I have 5 minutes?
Oh, yeah. You should be able to have the whole afternoon.
No, I
Yeah,
wish.
each
I wish. But I was thinking of war stories. And some of them are not of interest to the average person. I thought this was kind of interesting. Oh, okay. Well, I'll only take 3 minutes.
Okay. Oh, we'll get Paul too.
I'll give you 2 minutes. I was flying out of Benoit in the EMO, the A-180, and one of my early missions, I guess maybe number 50 or so. And I was a wingman on a two-ship. My leader was a guy by the name of Vasiliadis. We called him Vass. Hell of a fighter pilot. I don't know if you ever heard of that name, but he was my idol. He taught me things. And he had a new guy in his right seat on his first combat mission. We always put a new guy in the right seat for the first mission or two, just to get their feet wet. And so the new guy's in his right seat, and we went out and we dropped some ordnance and came back to land at Benoit. And I'm on his wing and made a formation landing. And I swear I lost control of the airplane for a reason I didn't understand at that time. They claimed later on that the brake locked up. I was never charged with any problem. The accident board told me it was, or their report freed me of any responsibility. But anyway, I landed on his wing and I veered into his aircraft as we rolled out on the runway at about 100 knots. And I raised the wing of my airplane to try to fly it away from him so that I didn't run into it. So I'm rolling out on the wing with my full aileron, lifted the wing, and as I ran out of speed, airspeed, the wing came down on his airplane. And we exited the runway in a big cloud of dust. And neither one of those airplanes ever flew again. I wiped out both airplanes.
Get 2 more in your base.
Well, I got it figured out. Anyway, the guy that getting his first ride in the right seat with Vasiliadis, with Vass, he went on to become a 4-star general in the Air Force. His name was Butch Vasilio. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. Butch Vasilio.
Yeah.
That's the guy that was in the right seat. It's a hell of a thing to look on your landing and look at the belly of your wingman. Yeah. But quick, one more story. Vass and I were drinking and partying a little bit at Quin Yon, one of the places where we pulled alert. And it was pitch black dark. And we got the word back that there was an outpost under attack that needed help. Is there anybody that would volunteer to go support this army post? The name of the post, by the way, you probably know, never heard of it. But the name of the post was Dock Sut, D-A-K-S-U-T. Anybody heard of that place?
Been there.
Been there?
Yeah.
Dock Sut. So it's over in, it's in a valley with a lot of tall mountains around, all around. And the weather was bad, and I flew Vass's wing. Vass was the lead. We volunteered to go. And Quinyon, we didn't have runway lights at that time. They lined up some Jeeps along the side of the runway to light our way. Actually, it was just barely getting dark when we took off, but when we got back, it was really dark. But Vass flew us down through the clouds. We broke out underneath, expended our ordnance, supposedly did a hell of a good job of repelling the attack, and a lot of they closed that place down. They finally got them out of there, and about a month later at Benoit, this was after my accident where I ran into him on landing and wiped out 2 airplanes. A general showed up to pin some medals on, and Vass and I both were given DFCs. That was for the night we flew the mission at Dock Sut through the clouds, and it was really both of us had been drinking a little, or we probably wouldn't have gone anyway. But anyway, they pinned DFCs on us, and they teased the hell out of us about the reason we got DFCs was surviving this formation landing where I'd run into him, and that's so everybody teased us and made fun of us. And so that's just another story.
Paul, do you want to say some things here and tell people what you did over there, please? Thank you.
Okay. No, I'm probably the only enlisted guy that's in here tonight. Am I right? Right over there? Okay. Now I've got some stories I can go back home and tell my enlisted buddies what the officers do on their spare time. Yeah, I was in the Ordnance. I was the weapons mechanic. And so I was involved with putting all of these good things on that you guys got to fly around and blow things up with. Some of the weapons I dreaded putting on. And one of the weapons I didn't like to put on was the napalm. It was not because what the napalm was designed for, but it had very thin skin. And it had just here little fuses you put in there. There were clay pots. And if the clay pot had a little crack in it, you were in danger of that thing starting to go off. We had water barrels, one on each end of the flight. Do you remember them? Had 55-gallon drums of water. And if that thing was leaking any, you had to get that into the water, get it out of your way, or it's going to end up on your hands. And it don't go away. Willie Pete don't go away. Second thing is, I never liked to load the 2.75 rockets. The ones that we had to take off the trailer, hand them, and stick them into the tubes, because if there's any static electricity, that thing was coming back out. And so you didn't want to be in front of one of them when you're loading. You all know what I'm talking about, the 2.75 and folding sand fins. But they were a nasty thing. They did a lot of good work. And the 20 millimeter guns had some problems. They were, like Don told me one time, that the ammo was not bore safe. And I wasn't sure what bore safe was because he didn't tell me that in training. But basically, it could go off in the barrel if another round come up behind it, if it failed to go all the way out the barrel.
The bore safe stuff had a little fuse in the head of it. And the shell spun so
Had to spin too many times, yeah. But we was running into a problem with feeders. The feeders was what they carried the rounds over to the gun itself, and we were having trouble getting parts for the feeders and the gun shop. We had to take guns down to the other end of the runway to the gun shop down there. So the 20 millimeter guns were a problem to work on sometimes. But the feeders on the outboard guns, we found that if you put 60 rounds per box, and there was 3 boxes that went out into the wing, it found out that the feeders would last longer. So that's what we went and adopted later on. But the miniguns was a gun that was very handy, very easy to work on, very easy to fire off on the ground. I was at the end of the runway one time, and I was the lead on the crew, 4 men, and so we yanked off the cowling on it, was putting the safety pin in. As soon as I started to put the safety pin down, the gun went off. The pilot motioned for me to come up on his wing. So I got up on his wing. He said, "You fired one off." And I said, "Are you sure?" And I was making it look like I really didn't think that happened. And, so in the meantime, the guys that grabbed the gun, and there's only 2 little Pleiku pins that held that thing in place, grabbed that gun and threw it in the back of our gun truck. And he wanted me to follow him back into the revetment, so I got down there. And he said, "You know, we're going to have to write a report on this." I said, "Come here a minute." Took him back to the truck and had canvas on the back of our truck, and I raised it up. I had 6 miniguns laying down there. And I said, "Can you identify which one of these is yours?" he said, "No, I can't." And I said, "Well, how can you be sure I fired one off, man?" But another time incident that Ordnance is dangerous, by the way. If you didn't figure this out, it is dangerous. And it's even more dangerous if you have somebody that like me on it. But one night we had night planes coming in from a mission, and we just got done. And I was on the load crew, and another guy was the lead on it, and he was a staff sergeant. He was looking up under the after we got done, and got looking up under the gun exits for the projectile casings to come out of, and he said, "I see some brass on one of the 20 millimeters." And I said, "Okay, what do you want me to do?" I was the number 2 man on the team, and that was the guy that goes in the cockpit and sets up the switches and make sure everything's in order. He said, "Well, run some hydraulic power up on that and see if we can push that thing forward." Well, I ran the power up and pushed it forward as much as it would go, and it wouldn't go any further. So he looked at it, and instead of doing what he should have done, was ordered the feeder to be removed and then bring the boat forward. I was told to pull the trigger once. There was a plane just taxied in front of me. 4 rounds went right over top of that plane at night. I was scared to death. Not only did I shoot over the top of a plane, but I never heard a 20 millimeter go off in a revetment before. They're very noisy. So, but on the good side is the pilot didn't come back and shoot me, which is because he got up on my wing and he wouldn't let me out of there until the air police got there. And they decertified a crew. Then they turned around after we wrote a report out. They turned around and had us to load another plane and recertify us because there's only 2 load crews at night, and they had to have both of them to get to the next missions out the next day. So that's the way that went. But I did spend 90 days at Da Nang.
What was the average time to load one of our airplanes? About 2.5 hours?
Depending on the type of load. If things went well with napalm, and usually napalm was a straight load of 8 bombs, an hour on napalm. Hard bombs is hour and a half because you have the arming wires that have to be positioned. The arming fuses have to be positioned and everything like that. And sometimes they have to
And
put
the
tail fuses on.
SAR mixes, SOG mixes take more time.
Well, that's interesting you said that because I didn't know I was involved with SOG until I was looking on my DD 214. That is another thing is that the enlisted people were pretty well kept in the dark on what was going on. We knew the planes were going out, taking their bombs out and doing something with them, going back. But we didn't know where they went or what they did. We didn't get reports. And that's one thing I kind of think that would have been good for the morale of the troops on the ground if they saw or heard what was going on. But what I did like, the idea is them going out and dropping bombs on somebody, was that they may have been stopping somebody from shooting rockets at us. And that's what I always kept in my mind. But at Da Nang, our first thing we'd do in the morning was go out and check the planes after we had a 5 o'clock breakfast. Check them, make sure everything was the same way it was the night before. And if it wasn't, then we had to do something about it. And if a plane broke during the night from hydraulic leaks or something, we'd have to do work on the planes. But while I was there in the mornings, there was a blue bus that came up, and it was a hospital bus, and it had the Red Cross on the side, and the Air Police was right there beside our planes, and I asked him what was that bus about, and he said that those guys are going to be shipped out to get better medical care in Japan, Germany, or maybe back to the States. And the next day, I always went out there and waved, thinking maybe somebody would see me. Those guys were paying the price.
I can just attest to the napalm comment and not really like to work with napalm, that having a napalm ignite under the wing of your airplane is really an attention focusing thing. I can attest to.
I'd like to say a couple of words if I could.
I got just one short comment
Go ahead. Please.
on the armament. We developed some in-house techniques, and we found out that with a 50-pound frag bomb and a can of napalm, if you drop the napalm and count it 2, 1,000, 1,002, and drop the 50-pound frag bomb, they both hit just about the same place at the same time. And at night, that's really spectacular. Going on.